Reaction is aplenty following Bell Media's announcement that it's cutting 1,300 jobs, shutting 6 radio stations, and closing 2 foreign bureaus. The move comes as Bell consolidates its news gathering and delivery in the face of rising financial pressure. Heritage Minister Pablo Rodriguez says the sad news only backs his case for 2 proposed laws designed to help Canada's struggling media sector, Bill C-11 and Bill C-18. Now, Bill C-18 would require companies like Google and Meta to pay Canadian news outlets for news content that appears on their platforms. But opponents of the bill say it might be doing more harm than good. Well, joining us now to talk more on this is Mr. Yaël Ossowski, Deputy Director of the Consumer Choice Centre. Sir, welcome to Forum Daily.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start with these job cuts. Bell is cutting 1,300 jobs. What sort of impact do you see this having on Canadian journalism and consumers' access to news?
Well, it's definitely never a good thing to have fewer media outlets. We don't like this, but I think consumers can see a silver lining. We have many different options that are available today. We have online media, we have a podcast, we have a completely new ecosystem of independent media that's catering to a lot of that. And some of this is regionalized. If we look towards the province of Quebec, talk radio is still a very big thing. In some areas of the country, that might not be true. But we do see a growing expansion of different options for consumers, because we have to imagine sometimes we're just not in front of the TV as much, or we're not listening to the radio as much. Our habits have changed. How we consume news and information has changed. And I think what the Bell realizes here is that essentially consumers are ready for a change as well, and they're going to have to pivot to that. So overall, I think it's probably a good thing, investment-wise, and for news consumers like me.
Now, the response to Bill C-18 has been quite great. Now, Meta has already started to block link sharing on Facebook, and the Prime Minister is calling this a bullying tactic and even a threat to democracy. So what are your thoughts on this? Is Meta's decision a threat to democracy? And how do you see this impacting consumers that maybe rely on social media news from certain outlets?
I definitely don't frame it that way. I think realistically, this is a reaction to governmental policy. And Canada is not the first time this has been tried. This is a playbook that's happened in Australia. It's actually currently happening in the United States, in the US Senate. The idea is that big tech is here, and all of our stories are now being featured on big tech. People are sharing them amongst their friends and families, and the media companies need to get a cut. Now, I think that's just the wrong way to frame it. Realistically, what we have here is you have a lot of entrenched power that are using their connections to politicians to ensure that their old model, their moat, is protected. And I think that's just wrong for news consumers. And that's why a lot of these platforms, they've either capitulated and gone along with some of the government's demands in these other countries, or they fought back by shutting off news. This is happening in the state of California as well. We have to realize that, this is the open internet. This is why we have so much free information today. I don't think it's a penalty to have a news article that is distributed on either my timeline or someone else's. It's a way to distribute information. And I think a lot of news organizations that are hip to it realize it. They've pivoted a lot of their coverage. They're able to share it with family and friends. News consumers like me are able to actually put it out there. I don't think we need to have this model of trying to force many of these tech companies to try to foot the bill. It's actually on the legacy media organizations and companies to innovate, to come up with better solutions, because those solutions are not going to be found because the PMO's office or some other federal legislation mandates it so. We need innovation, we need competition, and you just can't do it with this kind of model where we're forcing one set of companies to pay for another's bills.
All right, Mr. Ossowski. So what other options are there as Canada's journalism landscape continues to shift, as you say, into a more digital online world? Whose responsibility is it to support the Canadian journalism industry? Do you think maybe the government should step in more? Other officials are pushing social media giants to do such? Or do you think maybe we need an entirely different entity or regulatory body overseeing all of this? What are your thoughts?
I think the best entity or body for controlling journalism or having a say in it is the news consumer. We've already seen what happens when government tries to get very involved, and has done so across Canada and has provided many great subsidies to many different institutions. I think there you just have a warping of the incentives. What we need to have is strong demand for good news and good journalism. And it's happening right now. It's probably not happening on the same legacy let's say, media outlets that we're thinking about, but it's happening every day. There's great journalism projects that are coming together online, whether they be hosted on Substack or on YouTube. on any kind of digital streaming platform. A lot of this stuff already is available. And many people are learning new things about how this technology works. And I think it's on us as consumers to seek out that information. There is a market demand for it. There are many of us who are very willing to fork over money to subscribe to a very good news service. I think just the legacy models and advertising and how it used to work probably is just not the way forward now. We need to have good competition. And look, let's embrace the internet. That is one good open thing that we've been provided with in the last 2 decades. It really is up to the innovators to provide those solutions and for consumers to seek those out. I think we're ready and willing to have those options. We just need a little bit more competition, and then we'll find it.